Hello, home educators. This is Dr. Edward Mooney here, and I'm here doing my series on teachable moments, I call it. What that is, well, I was a high school and middle school teacher for 25 years, and for a number of years now, I've been a college professor of teacher education. What that means is in my courses, I teach young people how to be teachers. So I thought I'd take a lot of the tips that I give to my students and share them with all of you who are new educators at home with your own children. I mean these to be very short little mini videos that you could watch every now and then when you have a chance to kind of help you understand what you're going through. Not everyone is a natural teacher, I've learned. But there is one thing I learned that I'm going to deal with in this episode, which I call educational psychology. And that is, the title of this is Remember Your Childhood. Um, the, as I taught for all those years, the one thing that I learned most heavily was that when we grow up, we sometimes forget what it's like to be a kid again. And through all those years of teaching, I had to re-ground myself in memories from my own childhood. I could go over Piaget's theory of cognitive development, if I could talk, um, but I want to stay away from academic language here. These are supposed to be practical, down-to-earth, helpful little videos. The first thing that I want to talk to you about is remember that attention span grows as we age. So it's short as we're younger. I won't give you numbers or anything like that. But just realize that the younger children that you have, the more that they're going to be distracted and want to go off and do other things. That's why, for example, in kindergarten, a lot of teachers schedule just very short segment lessons, quickly going from one lesson to the next. And back in the day, kindergarten was a half a day thing because that's about as long as most kids were able to keep focused. Keep that in mind. But it's not always true all the way through school that it just gets longer and longer. Something happens to kids in middle school. That's called hormones. And all of a sudden they become very distracted by that. So their attention spans tend to fluctuate as we grow older and older. I even noticed when I taught seniors in high school that their attention span could shrink quite a bit. And that was because the anxiety of being 18 and saying, what am I going to do when I graduate high school, looms large over them. Again, as I mentioned in an earlier video, fear and anxiety tend to affect our ability to learn. So what I'm asking all the home teachers to do is that when you're setting up for working with your young person at home, remember what life was like for you at that age. Yeah, I know things were different. In first grade, we didn't have color television, so that gives you an example of how things have changed. We didn't have computers, we didn't have the internet, cell phones, smartphones, none of that when I was a young person. But I do know that I would jump around from one activity to the next. I remembered being on our street, and we'd start with coloring a cardboard box that we wanted to make into our airplane, and then we'd run out in the street and play ball, and then we'd run down the street and catch pollywogs in our little ditch. And we were always moving from one thing to the next. And that was up until the age of when I was 10 years old. One of the reasons I tell you this is that remember that when we were that age, we couldn't quite understand adults. And that's because sometimes it almost feels like they're a different species. When we're adults, we're a lot more practical. We're a lot more planning oriented. We're a lot more goal oriented than kids were. The last thing I want to say during this episode about Remember Your Childhood is never forget that play is real learning. We learned about who we are, about the things we enjoy from doing those things in childhood. I still love coloring, even at my age. I still love it. I wish I could run out with my old friends in the middle of the street and play ball. But I also learned that I like history and I like science from those early experiences in childhood. So never forget that giving them things that they could do and play with them would be a real benefit to the kids. So if you're going to do a lesson, allow the kids to explore. Give them freedom to do something. Like if you're, using sticks or something like that, what could you make out of these sticks? That is actually learning. It's called executive functioning skills. In their minds, they're learning how to motivate themselves, how to direct themselves, how to create activities. And that's actually healthy for a young brain. It's healthy for an older brain like mine, too. Play is critical. So in conclusion, in this episode, I would have to tell you, don't forget that you were once a kid, and try to go back and reconnect with what it was like for you. I think that will help your young person. And as I end all my videos with, take a breath. You don't have to be perfect. You're doing the best you can. Just keep trying. Do better when you know better. And this is Dr. Edward Mooney, and you'll notice my email address in the video here. Contact me if you have questions. We're going to get through this. Take care.